Welcome to the second quarter webinar of the 2021-2022 DLI webinar series. Our focus today is on building a DLI program or dual language immersion program. And we're going to spend some time also using the professionalism document that you see there on the left-hand side from the TELL framework, the Teacher Effectiveness for Language Learning framework. My name is Anne-Marie Gunter. I'm the World Languages Consultant with the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. I'm one half of the team that leads our DLI team at the state. And with me is Ivana Manthor-Anderson, who is the other half. Ivana, would you like to introduce yourself and share what you do?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ivana Manthor-Anderson. I'm one of 4 ESL Title III consultants here at DPI, and as Anne-Marie mentioned, also a co-lead for our dual language immersion programs. Thank you for joining us today.
Great. All right, well, today we're beginning with our welcome and introductions. So you're going to be introduced to us as speakers, but also we're going to get to know you a little bit. We'll have an overview of that TELL criteria and its sub-criteria that I mentioned. So professionalism is abbreviated PR, and we're looking at PR2, where it says the teacher's professional conduct advocates the importance of language learning for all students, which is certainly critical when we think about building DLI programs. In the TELL sub-criteria statements, when it says teacher, you'll see that little asterisk there. Teacher applies to any DLI educator. So whatever role you have, this applies to you in the specific task that you do with your role. So maybe you're a teacher, maybe you're an instructional coach, a media specialist, a principal, a central office coordinator, whatever your role is with your DLI program. Then we'll go on to reflect a bit on implementing PR2 in K-12 DLI programs and specifically with pedagogy. We'll have a look at perspectives on PR2 about building a DLI program, and that features Guilford County Schools. We have several presenters with us today from Guilford County Schools. And so I'm going to pause for a moment and let them introduce themselves real quickly, although they may want to introduce themselves more fully when we get to their section.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kimberly Pilling. I am the Global Language Director for Guilford County Schools and very happy to be here today.
Hello, everybody. My name is Carla Ballesteros. I am the principal at Allen J. Elementary in High Point, and we have 2 dual language programs.
Great. And I think, Carla, your co-presenter from Allen J. Elementary has just joined us as a panelist.
Hello, my name is Milay Alvarez. I am the dual language curriculum facilitator at Allen J.
Great, thank you. Well, that's everyone who's going to be sharing with you today. And as I said, they're all from Guilford County Schools and going to talk to you about their program and how they've built their DLI program within their schools and even across the district. At the end, we'll look at evidence of PR2 characteristics and behaviors in K-12 DLI programs and specifically in pedagogy. We're going to be using Jamboard for that, so I hope that that's a tool that you'll enjoy. And then we'll end with some wrap up and reminders to send us on our way today. So let's go ahead and continue our welcome and introductions. First and foremost, we want to make sure that you have taken a look at your Webex event control panel. It should look something similar to what you see here on the slide. Starting in the upper right-hand corner, you have controls to change your video layout, make the floating panel view if you want with the slides and whatnot. It's entirely up to you. Now, obviously, your control panel may look a little bit different depending on what kind of device you joined us with today and which web browser you're using. But generally, this is what you have. Also in the middle, you'll notice that there are a series of buttons that are probably pretty critical. The button on the far left that looks like a little microphone with a slash through it is in fact your microphone. Everyone's on mute to make sure our recording doesn't have any background noise. As you go further in on the buttons, kind of in the middle, you'll see the one that has the little chat bubble. And that's when you click on to see your chat panel on your control panel. It should appear at the bottom. And then over at the far right side, the little button with an X on it, the red button there, is what you'll click on when you leave today and exit our webinar. If you accidentally click it before then, don't worry. Just use the same link you joined us with once again, and you can come back into the webinar. So no worries. You will be using different parts of your control panel throughout, including some polling questions that will come up and be visible when we activate those. And as I said, the chat box for some activities and things that we're doing throughout the broadcast. So let's get started with one of our poll questions. We're all teachers here. And so of course we want to know what motivated you to participate in this webinar today? What motivates you in your learning, in other words? So this is a check all that apply. Did you want to access professional development made for DLI? Did you want to earn 1.5 contact hours for license renewal? Did you want to gather information to share with others? Did you want to learn about implementing DLI programs more effectively? Or are you wanting to find out more about DLI program resources, policies, networking, and so on? I'll go ahead and launch our poll. And you should be able to just click on the answers that you want. As I said, it's check all that apply for what motivated you today. All right, we've got about 10 seconds left to go. Please go ahead and get your responses in. All right, thank you for sharing. I'm going to go ahead and share the results with you so that everybody can see them. They should be appearing in your control panel. Please take a look. It looks like the majority of you, 70%, are here to find out more about DLI program resources, policy, and networking, or to learn about implementing DLI programs more effectively. And that's great. We're always happy to share and learn from each other. A majority of you are also here, 60%, to gather information to share with others. And that's a great thing to do. We always post the materials you're going to see, the slides that we've used, a recording of this broadcast, any handouts or links that we utilize. We post that within about a week of the broadcast in our DLI webinars archive space. So you'll be able to access that. You'll be able to repurpose the slides if you need to. We post them as Google Slides, PowerPoint slides, and then PDF. So you don't have to recreate anything if you don't want to. You can just repurpose those. And please share them with your team, your professional learning community, your PLC, your program, your department, your school, your district, your state, because I think we've got some folks from out of state too. Also, I see about 40% of you are here to access professional development made specifically for DLI. It's always a great thing to have because, as we know, the DLI field is growing in a lot of different ways, and so it's good to have things specifically for us. And then finally, a few of you, it looks like 20% are here to earn 1.5 contact hours for license renewal. Like any professional development offering, we want to give you a certificate of attendance if you participate in the live broadcast. And that comes to you usually in the form of an email with the attached certificate, again, about a week after the broadcast. So look for that in your email box. All right, well, thank you for sharing what motivated you to participate in our webinar today. We're going to go on and we want to get to know you a little bit better too, because we want to know, where are you joining us from today? Is it somewhere in North Carolina? And you'll see our state is divided into 8 different regions. These are educational regions by representation in our State Board of Education. There also are economic prosperity regions as defined by our state legislature. So you can see that they have names and numbers across the state. Or you might be joining us from outside of North Carolina or even outside of the US. So what I'll do is go ahead and launch this question as well, another poll, and you can share with us where you're joining us from today. Got about 10 seconds left. Go ahead and get your choices in. All right, thank you for sharing that. Let's take a look at the results on your control panel. We almost got someone from every region in the state, but we know it's a busy time of the year, so sometimes we don't get that in our broadcasts. But we do have people from the far west, Region 8, there on with the light purple on the screen on the map of North Carolina, as well as the Southwest region and the Piedmont Triad region. In addition, we've got people from the North Central region, the Southeast region, and looks like outside of North Carolina as well. So welcome to everyone. We're so glad you joined us today and that you're spending time with us this afternoon learning more about building a DLI program. All right, well, now that we know you a little bit better, let's go ahead and take a closer look at the TELL criteria. Like I said, TELL stands for Teacher Effectiveness for Language Learning. It's a framework that's used nationally and has been developed and actually revised and updated fairly recently. We like to use it because it aligns to best practices in pedagogy in all types of language instruction, including DLI programs. Our focus today is on PR2, which, as you saw before, states the teacher's professional conduct advocates the importance of language learning for all students. I want you to pause for a moment and think about that. As we mentioned before, teacher in this case applies to any DLI educator course, regardless of what role you have. But think about the importance of language learning for all of your students. How do you frame that out in your mind? And how do you ensure that your professional conduct reflects that? To help you with this, I'm going to go ahead and put in our chat box links to where you can download the TELL Professionalism Domain criteria. It's a whole document, so you'll get to see PR2 in detail, as well as the other sub-criteria that go in the professionalism domain. As you can see, this is labeled the TELL Professional Domain criteria from 2019. The TELL domains were originally introduced almost 10 years ago now, and the first documents that we had were published in 2014. After about 5 years, as you can see, they've updated them, so we are using the current TELL documents from 2019. In the chat box, you can click on that link to the Google Drive that has the professionalism domain documents. You can just download for yourself and have on your screen or print out if you need to. You can also access it on our DLI webinar series webpage with the link that's there, or from the TELL framework webpage itself, where you would see all the other domains too, some of which we focus on in other DLI webinars or various broadcasts that we're doing in North Carolina this year as part of our webinar series for language educators. So I'll give you a moment to download a copy for yourself, however it works best for you. And I want you to skim the 3-lettered sub-criteria that go with this session's focus of PR2. I'll pause for a moment while you do that, and we'll look for any questions you have in the chat box. All right, I hope you had a chance to download the TELL Professionalism Domain criteria document in some fashion. I did see we had a couple more people come in, so I have posted those links again in the chat box. That's why they're duplicated, because when you come in anew, you don't get to see what we've already posted in the chat. So everybody should have access to our links now. Well, let's take a closer look at TELL criteria PR2 and its sub-criteria. The first sub-criteria breaks down PR2 a little bit and says, the teacher ensures that their teaching practices communicate a positive message about language learning. So teaching practices, pedagogy, those kinds of things are very important to share that message about all students being able to learn a language. And remember, your teaching practices may be you as a classroom teacher, if that's your role. It may be you as an instructional coach working with teachers to talk about classroom practices, or it may be in some other way. Maybe you do professional development where you talk about that. The next subcriteria, B, is the teacher models the advantages of having linguistic and intercultural competence in the community. And that's something that's very critical for DLI programs. We need to recognize that DLI programs, as you well know, are usually new to our communities. Most adults in our communities have not gone through school where there was a DLI program. And so they're learning about it for the first time. And it's a really good opportunity to educate people about what DLI programs are, what advantages they bring, for example, closing the achievement gaps and having all students achieve at a higher level. But it's also a good chance to talk about as well that linguistic diversity you have in your community. And, you know, in North Carolina, across the state, we have something like 300 or more languages that are spoken in students' homes. Within your community, whether that's just for your school or your program or your district or your county, you may have a great amount of linguistic diversity depending on who lives there and how old their children are who are interacting with the school. It's also a chance to talk about intercultural competence, knowing how to say what to whom and when, making sure that we are communicating effectively, not just with our words, but in fact with our actions and with the way we approach communication in general. And so a teacher or any DLI educator can model those kinds of things as part of the DLI program. Finally, there's C. The teacher advocates for language learning opportunities for all students. And again, teacher can be any DLI educator, but think about how you do that. Language learning opportunities don't just exist in the DLI program, although that might be the main source in your particular school where your program is. But how do you advocate that for all students? Think about your admissions policies. How do students get into your DLI program? Is it parent choice? Is it student choice? Is it part of a school choice initiative, a magnet program maybe, or something else within your district or your area? And then how do you include all students in that? So are you including, for example, native English speakers as well as native speakers of other languages? Are you including English learners who might be in your community? And that might be, for example, one of the reasons why the DLI program has been started in your school. So let's, now that we know the subcriteria that goes with this particular focus, let's reflect on that a little bit and how we implement PR2 in our K-12 DLI programs and specifically in our pedagogy, whatever our pedagogy entails, whether it's classroom instruction with students or professional development work with others. So I'm going to ask you to do another poll question, and this one will take a little bit longer on because it involves a little bit more. So when you think about your DLI programs and classrooms, which of the subcriteria are professional strengths for you? You can choose one or two of these. I really want you to focus in on the three of them and think about what are your professional strengths when it comes to this? And if you had to, what evidence would you share about those subcriteria being your professional strengths? So I'll give you a moment to think about that before I launch the poll question. All right, I'm pleased to see some of you responding already. You still got time, a little over a minute, to get your responses in and share with us what your professional strengths are when it comes to PR2. All right, we've got 20 more seconds. All right. Thank you for sharing your answers. I'm going to go ahead and show the results to you in the control panel. And I'm going to keep those results visible as we move through some of the other activities a little later on, so that you always have a good reference point, even though I know you downloaded the TELL Professionalism Domain document too. Well, let's take a look. It looks like the main professional strength for those of us here today is C. The teacher advocates for language learning opportunities for all students. You get a chance to share about that later on, but that's always a good thing to think about. How are we as inclusive as possible with every single student who is in our program or our school or our community? There's also a majority of you who picked A and B as a professional strength as well, over 50% on each one. Focusing in on ensuring that teaching practices communicate a positive message about language learning, and that the DLI educator is modeling the advantages of having linguistic and intercultural competence in the community. Great. All right, we'll keep those things in mind as we move forward. So one of the things I promised you is that you get to share about your professional strengths. And so this is a waterfall in the chat activity. Some of you may be familiar with that as flood the chat. We prefer a waterfall in the chat since it sounds a little more gentle, and we have a lot of floods in North Carolina that can be rough on us. So what I want you to do is, in the chat box, type the letter of one sub-criteria that you think is important for K-12 DLI programs or classrooms. It can be one of your professional strengths, but it doesn't have to be. And again, I've got them on the screen so you can see them, A, B, and C. So start out with a letter. Then, in 15 words or less, explain why you think this sub-criteria is so critical for DLI in your own words. But don't send it in the chat yet, because you'll have to wait till I say the magic word there in purple. And once I say that, you'll click enter so that we see a whole waterfall of responses at once. All right, let's go ahead and pause. Please go ahead and type the letter of a sub-criteria that you think is important, and then your explanation, but don't hit send yet. All right, let's take another minute or so to gather our thoughts. Make sure that your response is ready to send when we say the magic word. All right, are you ready? Get set, go. Let's see the waterfall of responses in the chat.
The beautiful waterfall. Seeing lots of A's and B's and a few C's coming through as well. Did you want me to read some of these, or did you have?
Sure, let's go ahead and highlight some of them and share out.
Sure. So one of the C's is advocating for all students to have the opportunity to learn other languages promotes an equitable environment. So that's definitely something that we're hearing a lot about and are always paying attention to. Engaging traditional students, another C, Engaging traditional students to Spanish clubs after school. Let's find an A. Lacking a positive message, students and parents will not be as willing to put in the work of learning the language, and the program will fail. So that positive message and that positive energy is very important. Another B, or a B for the first time, the teacher models the advantages of having linguistic and intercultural competencies in the community. So this is critical because it allows for more language exchange and business opportunities. So I'm hearing a lot of real life being included in each of these, not just thinking about the classroom. Here's a B. I believe that in some of the rural areas, they don't believe in linguistic ability or multicultural environments as something necessary or useful. I believe it is something that needs to be taught and showed. So some more modeling being encouraged there. Any of them stand out for you, Anne-Marie?
No, that sounds good. These are all great responses. And we encourage you to continue to think about why these particular sub-criteria speak to you about their importance in DLI programs and classrooms, because this is something too we want you to take back and continue to consider with your teams and with your programs and with your communities. Obviously too, you may want to use other sub-criteria on the professionalism domain document to get down to some of those reflections and really use them to critically analyze where you are as a DLI program or a DLI community in general, and move yourself forward in different ways from a professional standpoint. All right, well, let's move on. This is the exciting part of our program because we have co-presenters coming into you from Guilford County Schools, and they're going to share with you what their perspectives on building a DLI program are with PR2 from the ground up. We've got some great presenters today to share different types of DLI programs, but within the same district and with quite a bit of history. So some of you may already know, but in North Carolina, we have over 225 DLI programs, K-12. The first program ever was in Guilford County Schools. It was started as a one-way immersion program in the fall of 1990. So you're going to get to hear a little bit about Jones Elementary as it is today, our most well-established and experienced DLI program in the state. And on the flip side, you're also going to get to hear about Ellen J. Elementary, which was one of the newest DLI programs in the state, and the only one that has Urdu as one of its DLI program languages, and one of a few that actually has multiple DLI programs in the same building because they have Spanish and Urdu. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues from Guilford County Schools. And please excuse us for a moment because we're going to have to do a little switching behind the scenes as we make different people presenters so they can walk through their slides at their own pace and present them. I think first we're going to Carla and Millet. Who should I make the presenter?
You can make me the presenter, Carla.
Okay, great. What I'm going to do is move that to you. You should now have control of the screen and you can show your slides and go through them at the pace you want.
And the slides are the ones that we put together with you guys, right?
Yes, you can just show them from your screen.
They're not coming up.
Okay. Give me just a second. We might be able just to make you. Again, pardon us a moment. Let me see. Because we may also be able to switch you so that.
Or you can move them if you want and then just say next slide. If that works faster, that's fine.
Okay. There used to be a function that I could give you control of the slides as we're seeing them. Just a second to see if that's actually. Probably go ahead and click on the slides. I'll go ahead and show them from my screen again. And see if in fact your mouse now works to forward the slides.
I don't think so. It might be me.
Well, no worries. We can just go ahead this way. As long as
Right.
everyone can see the
Thank you.
slides. Carla, please go ahead and
Yep.
begin. Be sure to introduce yourself
Thank
and your
you.
colleague who are here to share with us today.
Yes, so everybody, I'm really excited to be here. Again, my name is Carla Flores Ballesteros. I am the proud principal at Allen J. Elementary. We are located in High Point, and we are very proud of the two programs that we have. So as you see in this slide, we have a Spanish DL program and an Urdu DL program, and many of you probably don't know what Urdu is. Or what where is Urdu is spoken. Urdu is the official language of Pakistan. We have a very high Pakistani population, and that's what we're serving. When we'll go a little bit more into detail a little farther down. But I wanted to make sure that we highlight our mission and our vision. I'm sure you all can read it, and I just want to highlight that we see our students as global citizens, as a part of a global community, because we are very, very diverse here at L&J, and that's why we want to highlight that in our mission and vision, to make sure that our goals and our vision, as I said, represent the people that we serve, including our students and our families. Next slide, please. So again, I'm Carla, and I have Milay, and Milay is our dual language curriculum facilitators. We are very fortunate, and the district has really supported us with this initiative. And we have our regular curriculum facilitator, and we also have a dual language curriculum facilitator that works directly with our dual language both programs, and also collaborates closely with our regular curriculum facilitator. The beauty also that Milay has, this year she's new to this position. She was one of our former teachers in the dual language program. She was our first grade Spanish teacher. And our regular CF is also new to this position. She was her counterpart on the English side as the English dual language teacher in first grade. So they both transitioned together from having this very strong relationship in the classroom to becoming curriculum facilitators. And Milay will talk a little bit more about that also. Next one, please. So getting to know you, we are, as I said, a very diverse school. We have 20% of our student population is Asian, with 98% of that population being Pakistani. We have 28% African American students, 27% Hispanic, 3% multiracial, and 50% white students. So as you can see, we are, again, a very diverse school, but we're a very balanced school. So our demographics are very balanced. If you go into a classroom, you see how diverse a classroom is. And with this, we have the three most spoken languages are English, Spanish, and Urdu. So every communication we send, we make sure that we include those languages. And again, we are located in the south of High Point, and we are adjacent to Randolph County. We are a Title I school. We more than 85% of our students would qualify for free and reduced lunch. We are a CEP school, so that means that all our students receive free and reduced. I'm sorry, all our students receive free lunch and breakfast every day. Right, please. And also we are very intentional of hiring and retaining staff that looks like our students. So just a little bit of history about our dual language program at L&J. We started the conversations actually in 2017. That was my first year in this principalship. and the district reached out to us. They wanted to make sure that they offer us an opportunity to open a dual language program in Spanish for our students in order to help with this language learning for our Spanish speaking students, to collaborate with our EL teachers. And it was great conversation, but we were very intentional about reminding the district that we also had a very high Pakistani population. So if we offer this program in Spanish, this dual language program, why can we not do the same thing for our Urdu speaking students who also qualify to receive EL services? So with that being said, we continue to do the work with the district. They were very open. They supported us in the idea. We started looking out there to see if we could find any programs that had Urdu programs. There is a high Pakistani population in California. There's a high Pakistani population in Colorado, in New York, but we did not find any programs that had dual language immersion programs. We did find one school that used to have a transitional program in New York, but they did not have it anymore. So we basically started from scratch for this dual language program in Urdu, because there's not other program like this. We were very fortunate that we were able to visit different programs that have Spanish programs across the state and also programs across the nation. We went to New York and New Jersey, and we were able to learn from all these programs. So I would say that if you're considering opening a program, you have to be very intentional about visiting places where they offer programs. And even if it's a program that you may not want to do exactly or mirror that program, you're going to learn so much from those visits. And then 2018 was our very first year where we started our both programs. We were fortunate that at a time we had one of our kindergarten teachers who spoke Urdu. So she transitioned from being a teacher in the regular English program or monolingual program to be the Urdu English teacher. Now, our Urdu English program has a standalone teacher. It's one teacher teaching both languages. Whereas our Spanish program offers the opportunity to have the two teachers. You have the close collaboration between the Spanish teacher and the English teacher, and Milay is going to talk a little more about how we're doing that. So first year of implementation was 2018. We had kindergarten. Next year we had kinder first. Next year we had kinder first second. And this year we have third grade. This is the first year we have the program in testing grade. So we are very anxious to see how the work that we have been doing with our collaboration in the two languages, how it's going to positively impact the scores for our students. And I'm going to let Milay talk a little bit more about what model we do and how we started and have shifted throughout the years.
Hello, everyone. I am Milay Alvarez, and I am also very proud, first, to work at Alan J, and second, to be the dual language curriculum facilitator this year. Like Ms. Ballesteros said, this is my first year serving as dual language curriculum facilitator, but I am very happy to support teachers from a different position. I've been working with dual language immersion programs for about 8 years, and I really like the opportunity these programs give to our diverse population. Okay, so talking a little bit about research. So there are different approaches or programs for dual language immersion programs. But specifically for our population, we decided to focus on 50-50 two-way immersion. This approach provides more opportunities for ELS to, reach higher levels of academic achievement than any other types of programs. So in 2019, we began to implement our 50-50 dual language program under the AB Day model. So this model allowed teachers to alternate days equally throughout the week. Something important to know is that the skills are built upon and not retaught in both languages. So we did that model for about 2 years, but starting this year and after meeting to reflect on our practices and to learn about the teachers' perspectives and the way they were experiencing this model in their classrooms, we decided to alternate the 50-50 program, but on the same day. So what we do now is half of the day is taught in one of the languages, either Spanish or Urdu, and the other part of the day is taught in English. So I think that we can go to the next slide to talk about that part, like the curriculum, how we do curriculum in our program. So we are following the state and county guidelines for curriculum. So we have CKLA listening and learning, we have Eureka Math, we have 3Ls, we have ARC, and we have all the other components for our curriculum. To make it work effectively in our dual language program, we know that certain things have to be in place, like collaboration, planning time, communication, participation, innovation, and many more things. So when planning, our teachers, so they have a specific day to sit and plan and to see what they are gonna teach. So for example, Eureka Math, in Eureka Math, there are different components. Let's say fluency, application problem, concept development, student debrief. So both teachers, when they sit together, they divide those components and they teach some of those components in one language and the other two components in the other language. And that's the same case in Urdu. So the Urdu teacher, which in this particular case, the Urdu teacher is the English teacher, and the Urdu teacher, she is teaching both languages. So she knows what she has been teaching in the morning to do the other components in the afternoon. For CKLA listening and learning, so we also have different components, but we have adopted the 3Ls approach. So with the 3Ls approach, there's some other components, and what we do is that teachers, again, they share what they are going to do, like they divide those components into two different parts. Some components to be taught in English and the other components to be taught in Spanish or Urdu. And for Urdu skills, so we, at the beginning, we were having a little bit of difficulty in getting those authentic materials, but because our Urdu teachers are from Pakistan, they're helping us to build good resources for every grade level. So they are bringing from their country those authentic materials that we really think they are appropriate for our program. It's the same case in Spanish. So in Spanish, we're also building and we're using different resources like Benchmark, Soluciones, El Próximo Paso al Éxito, and all those resources that are helping us to build more effectively our program. I think that we can go to the next slide. Miss Ballesteros.
Yes, so I was very glad that we were talking about PR2 and, teachers showing that professional conduct and advocator for the importance. And I think it is so important that we keep that community piece. When you are developing or implementing a dual language program, it is very important that everybody is on board. I can tell you when we were getting ready to start, I had an amazing parent volunteer who was an Urdu speaker. I am a native Spanish speaker, and just listening to them, trying to understand a little better the culture, the language. She was phenomenal. She later on became one of our teacher assistants. But having all stakeholders on board to help them understand the why, even the parents who might not choose to put their students in our program, it's important to have their voice and hear their voice. With that being said, I want to clarify, we are not a magnet school. We are a school that serves their community. So we only have these dual language programs offered to our families, and it's an opt-in program. And it's for our English speakers and for our Spanish and Urdu speakers or speakers of any other languages. So it's just for our community. So with that, the stakeholders being part of this vision is also helping them understand what a dual program is, what benefits they will have, the community at large. We try to bring in, for example, right now we are closely working with the High Point community partners to help them understand that these people that we are serving in our schools are people that go to their stores or are people that work with them to also continue that work that we're doing in schools to better serve our community and work together for the best interests of not just our school, but of our city. And developing strong relationships when we are transparent, when we share information that is important in all three languages, our parents are going to feel more empowered, and they're going to also feel that they can support their student in different ways, academically, socially, behaviorally, in their own language, and that's going to transfer to English. So if we are providing resources in one language, we try our best to provide those resources in other languages. So parents feel more welcome into our buildings as well. I can tell I have not learned Urdu. I know a few phrases, but just those little things go a long way. Also with that, we have strong relationships with one of our partners is UNCG through the enacted program. We have worked closely. They have provided professional development, community events with our parents to help them engage in literacy programs, to help them get resources for home with books and Wi-Fi or different things that they may need. So having also that collaboration piece with higher education has been very helpful for us. Again, communicate. There is a better way to work together than communicate with each other. Being able to receive feedback, to hear the voice not only of our staff, because that's why we made the decision to change from an AB day to a 50-50 within the same day, but also the voice of our students and our parents and our community. So when we survey, we communicate with them, and it's not just me to you, but it's also I'm listening to what you have to share. It's important that we continue that and we never stop communicating. And assessing, reassessing, and assessing. It's not just testing. I'm not talking about testing, but assessing what's working, what's not working. Why do we want to change this? So hearing, again, is related to, to what I was just saying with the communication piece, is that assessing is really important. And I would say there will always be opportunities for growth, no matter what we do and how we do it. We have to always keep that in mind. There will always be opportunities for growth for whatever we're doing to better serve our students and our families. Please. If we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you so much. So we also talked earlier about inclusion, and it is so important that we include everybody and that our students see themselves. And when we make decisions, we are very intentional with the decisions that we make. And I put this slide. We were very fortunate within the only few years that we have had our dual language programs. We have been recognized nationally. We were selected to include our programs. And as you can see, we were at the national level for the guide for extraordinary language programs, dual language programs to better serve our students. And we were very proud of achieving that recognition. Also, when we have visitors from our district office or from outside, I know next month we are having superintendents from across the state coming to visit our program to see how we do things and how we are trying to better serve our students. They see that there's that alignment, a perfect alignment between Spanish and English and Urdu, just that collaboration piece with the teachers, so they can make lessons that are relevant and rigorous, and they're aligning with the curriculum, but also that we are customizing according to our needs. So like Milay said, we follow district mandates, but we also are allowed to somewhat customize so we can meet the needs of our students. And I have just a sample of a flyer we sent home, and we put, the English, Spanish, and Urdu with the information. Another thing that we use to communicate is Class Dojo. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Class Dojo. And the reason we use Class Dojo is because whatever text we put in English, our families can translate to any language, or most any language, and Urdu and Spanish are included in there, to be able to read what we send. And also they can respond in that language, and we can translate it back to English, and we can communicate that way. This is just a picture of a sample of one of our bulletin boards during Ramadan. And these are pictures of our students explaining and sharing what Ramadan is to them, the importance. And it is important that we highlight those things from our students, and that they see that their voice is important around our buildings and they are acknowledged. Next. Last slide. And this is just a sample, and I want us to leave our section with this. This is just a little note one of our students wrote, and it was very empowering and sad at the same time. She writes, "You always help me so much. If I was from even if I was from a different religion, you were always helpful and kind. Thank you." This is the world that we want to create for all the students that we serve, where they feel that they are accepted for who they are. But it made me sad at the same time, because what are they seeing outside of our building? So when we advocate for our students, when we share what we do within our schools, I think we can better educate our staff, our community at large, to hopefully create a better world for these students. And that's the reason why we're very determined and intentional of also including this Urdu English program at our school. Thank you.
Thank you both so much for sharing about your program at L&J Elementary School. There really is a lot to take in. Even in the few short years you have been welcoming students, you've accomplished so much. So thank you for sharing that.
And you guys only had one question and you actually answered it during your presentation. So if there are other questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box.
Right? Well, in the interest of time too, you can continue to put things into the chat box, but I'm going to also ask you to do your takeaways. And this is kind of like Waterfall in the chat, but you don't have to wait. So I want you to think about the DLI program you just learned about at L&J Elementary in relation to PR2 for DLI educators. And then consider, what is your most important takeaway? Maybe it's something that was said or a question you had that you'd like more details about. And then in the chat box, type your responses so that we can continue the conversation with our presenters and with each other about PR2 and what we've learned. I'll pause for a moment so you can add your takeaways into the chat. You do not have to wait for me to say go. Just add your thoughts in as you get them.
So our first one has come in. Great to hear that AJ assesses and reassesses. Now it's jumping to meet the needs and hear the voice of stakeholders. The next one is exactly why we wanted to start a program. Nice. You got some people excited, it sounds like. The students' note that we shared speaks volumes. Thank you. Community buy-in and participation is evident in your success. By the teaching, showing the advantages of having linguistic and intercultural competencies in the community makes the parents part. Sorry guys, it's jumping. Makes the parents part of these interventions. The next comment, I appreciate that the needs of the community was the drive for the DLI program. Yes, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that's so powerful, you know, when I hear this story, every time I hear this story, just how much the community was involved and how, you know, the school said, we are going to do what the community needs. And we would love to see more communities stepping up and saying, this is what we want, this is what we need. Those of you that have started programs without the community asking for it, you know that it can sometimes be a little more of a challenge. And so, you know, I'm always curious to know, how do we get those communities involved and excited to even know that it's a possibility? Your program is sending a powerful message to students about the worth of their native language. And we also have a request for a copy of the PowerPoint.
And we will provide a copy of the PowerPoint. In fact, we provide a copy of all of these slides as PowerPoint slides, so you can kind of repurpose them as Google slides and as PDF slides, because oftentimes PDF is easier to view like on a smart device. But you will have access to those. We post them about a week after the broadcast. Sometimes we get them posted a little more quickly, and you'll see at the end exactly where they'll be posted so that you can get to them when you need them.
Great. The next comment is, I
Can
love
say
the way
something really quick. I'm sorry. I'm going to put my email in the chat if you would like to contact me for anything. We are open to visitors, or if you want resources, we'll be glad to share those with you as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you. We have another comment. I love the way languages are included on a daily basis and the importance of collaboration. I love how you advocate for dual immersion and challenge your students. I don't think I've missed any comments. Scrolling back up.
Yeah, that looks good. So in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and scroll to our next presenter. You can still add takeaways if you want, of course, but there's more to learn from Guilford County Schools. And so I'm going to turn it over now to Kimberly Pilling to talk to us about another DLI program. As I said at the beginning, the first DLI program ever in the state of North Carolina.
Thank you so much, Anne Marie. I appreciate it. Again, my name is Kimberly Pilling. I'm the Global Language Director in Guilford County Schools, and I directly oversee our one-way programs, but I have had the great privilege of being able to work with and collaborate with Principal Ballesteros and her team. And just a shout out to Carla and Milay, because the work that they have done at LNJ is really exceptional and exemplary. And so I would be remiss if I just didn't give them kudos for the amazing hard work that they have done there. I am really excited to talk about the work happening at Jones Elementary School, which is one of our two one-way dual language programs in Guilford County. Began in the 1990-91 school year. Next slide, please. Our other immersion program is at Kirkland Park Elementary, which is in High Point. It hasn't been around quite as long as Jones. One of the advantages we have right now at Jones, we're working to correct that, is that it does have a pathway for our students, so they can take their K-5 education at Jones, and then they can continue on an immersion track at Melvin Swan Middle. And we also have a few adapted programs at Grimsley High School. So we do have students who graduate from our system having had really intensive experience in the Spanish language, which is really exciting. Next slide, please. So just to talk about how we have tried to work to with the TELL guidelines and teachers and their practices and messaging and teachers as models and advocates. One of the things that we did a couple of years ago was create a DLI leadership team. I worked with my esteemed colleague, Dr. Myra Hayes, who is our EL director and oversees our dual language 50-50 programs. And we decided that it would be a great idea to create a leadership team and invite representatives from all of our dual language and immersion schools. Our goal was to create an aligned vision and mission for our respective programs, and we both felt that including teachers at the schools was a really important component of this. Obviously, we had principals and CFs and assistant principals, but we also wanted teachers to be part of this leadership team because we knew that their expertise and their input was really vital to the success of this leadership team. The pandemic sort of did put a pause on the work that we have done because we weren't able to meet, but we got off to a really good start, and we look forward to reprising the work of this DLI leadership team. Next slide, please. Just to talk a little bit about the demographics at Jones Elementary School. 60% of the population are African American, 22% white, and 15% of our population there are Hispanic. Carla mentioned that LNJ is not a magnet school. Jones is a magnet school, and so anyone can apply to go there to be part of their immersion school. They are also a neighborhood school, so they do serve kids in their neighborhood. So there are two tracks at Jones. You can do the full immersion, which is a 90-10 one-way immersion, or there are a group of children who elect to just take the traditional track. Next slide, please. Just a little bit of enrollment data. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. The thing that I thought was interesting here are that our numbers stay fairly steady from kindergarten through third grade. But as Principal Ballesteros mentioned, third grade is the first grade that there is testing. And I don't have really explicit information on this. It's sort of anecdotal, but my guess is that that number falls off a little bit because we do know that with dual language and immersion programs, there are a couple years where there is a gap between student achievement in English, which is why, as Carla said, community understanding, community involvement is really, really vital so that parents don't see that number and get scared, because those numbers realign very, very quickly as far as student achievement in both English and the language that they are learning in school. Next slide, please. So we've had some really great growth at Jones. You can see that since 2015, the performance grade for the elementary school has gone from C to a B, from a 56 to a 72. Hopefully you can see that all right on the slide. And academic growth in 2015 and 2016 did not meet. They met in 2017, and they have exceeded growth in 2018 and 2019. So there are some really positive numbers there. And there are a few reasons we think that are contributing to those numbers, and I'll talk about those in just a second. If we can go to the next slide, please. So just to show some of the further success that we have seen in recent years at Jones, our reading and language arts scores are 56% of our kids there are proficient. And in the next slide, we will see that even math scores have gone up. Jones is ahead of the state average by about 5 percentage points in math test scores. And next slide, please. So we think that a big part of this is because of the strength of the immersion program. We focused really heavily on making sure that our immersion teachers had authentic resources. And again, working with Dr. Hayes' team, we collected a group of expert teachers from both Jones and Kirkman Park, and a couple of team members from Dr. Hayes' team were really exceptional and instrumental in this work. We used CKLA, and there was no Spanish version of that. And so we were not content to translate these materials because that wouldn't be authentic language. And so a team of teachers, we worked for months and months to create a Spanish version of CKLA. We looked to find authentic resources, and we even adapted some of the curriculum to meet the specific needs of our immersion students. We were also very intentional about making sure that the CKLA curriculum really lifted up and valued the Spanish culture and talked about things from a little bit of a different lens than some of the modules in CKLA did. And we think this has been really, really helpful for the immersion program and for the teachers as well. Next slide, please. Another thing that we did, and again, this was involving teachers so that practices, so that their modeling, so that their advocacy could be aligned. We have gotten together meetings with teachers at Jones and Swan and Grimsley to work together to identify gaps in learning in order to improve our programs and fluency. One of the things that we saw pop up at the middle and the high school level were some definitely gaps in grammar. And so the great teaching team at Jones started doing a little more grammar focused and explicit grammar instruction in Spanish for their kids. And again, we don't have any specific data, but anecdotally, our teachers at Swan are now seeing the 6th graders and 7th graders who they see with improved Spanish grammar skills over what they were seeing 2 or 3 years ago. So this is just one example of how we have activated our teachers as experts in the classroom to change their practices and improve the Spanish of their students. Next slide, please. Teacher recruitment, as anyone with a immersion program knows, can be challenging. So Mr. Luciano, who's the principal at Jones, began kind of on his own a program of recruiting stellar teacher assistants and using the certification system through Guilford County to get them certified as classroom teachers. And this way they were already familiar with the kids, already familiar with the students, and sort of had a hands-on training. And so we've had for many, many years some really, really highly qualified teachers at Jones, and teacher retention can be a challenge, but this seems to be helping with that as well, and finding teachers who come to the program and then who stay long enough to really establish strong classrooms and, of course, a strong rapport with their students. A great thing that happens at Jones for teachers as models are that they are representative of many, many different Spanish-speaking countries. And so it exposes the children to lots of different vocabulary, depending on the country, even different Spanish accents. And so our kids, when they finish at Jones, are really adept at understanding where different Spanish speakers are from and a wide variety of colloquial terms even. Next slide, please. So as is the case at Allen J, a stellar administration is really necessary for a strong program, for strong advocates, and to just really lift up the teaching team. And we do have a wonderful administration at Jones. Ron Luciano is the principal there, has been for several years, and is doing some great work. The curriculum facilitators, Inia Soto, was instrumental on the team that developed the CKLA programming. And Saida Holmes is the assistant principal at Jones. And just to leave you on a note that I think is pretty cool is that Miss Holmes began as assistant principal last year, but her journey at Jones began in 1990. She was actually part of that very first immersion class as a student. And so to see her now to return as an assistant principal is really a great thing, and we're thrilled to have her as really the greatest model of all for the advantages of what bilingual and biliterate education can do. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing about the program at Jones Elementary as well as Swan Middle and Grimsley High as you articulate up into high school. So once again, we're going to ask everyone, what is your takeaway? Think about the DLI program you just learned about in relation to PR2. What is your most important takeaway? And then, like before, in the chat box, type your responses so we can continue the conversation with the presenters and each other. We might also have a few questions as well.
So there are a few questions. Do you want to take those now?
Let's tackle those while folks are thinking about their takeaways.
All right. So the one that most recently came in was, what is the program model for your middle and high school students?
So that's a very good question, and it is definitely a work in progress. For the middle school, we were teaching a Spanish literature class. We also teach social studies, and it's the regular social studies curriculum, but we just work to find resources in Spanish. The same is true with our science curriculum. We use North Carolina curriculum. It is just taught in Spanish. And those are the three classes that our middle schoolers have. We recently at Swan Middle changed from a Spanish literature class to a heritage Spanish so that our students there could get high school credit. The same is true for Grimsley. We have an adapted heritage Spanish program. Most of our kids in the immersion program are not heritage speakers, and so we didn't want to just use the heritage program, but we felt like there was enough there that we could use, certainly as far as the grammar and the reading of authentic resources is concerned. I hope
Great.
that answered your question.
We will see if they type a follow-up. We also just had additional questions about your teacher recruitment.
We do work with Participate. I did see that question in there. Most teacher recruitment is done at the school level, so principals do take care of that, but I think it's EII is one of the systems we use, College Board, as well as Participate to recruit our teachers. And we've been so lucky. We've gotten some really, really great educators who bring with them valuable cultural perspective.
And we did have the comment that CKLA now has a Spanish program, whereas another person had said how impressive it is that the teachers found time to adapt it for DLI since they were not available to mirror at that point.
Yes, we're thrilled that CKLA has one now. We also use ARC, which has a Spanish program, as does Eureka Math. So we're really happy that some of these program designers are understanding the need to have these resources in Spanish as well as English.
I love the bridge you have built between elementary, middle, and high school. Is the latest comment.
Yeah, we've definitely seen that as being essential to a really successful program, because if the elementary school teachers don't know what their students are encountering at middle school, they can't prepare them for it. And it's been a wonderful collaboration through those programs and for those teachers to work together.
That's wonderful. I'm sure people are still typing. You know, while people are typing, I will just say that one of my biggest takeaways is always the amazing work that's happening in North Carolina around DLI. It's fascinating to me as I hear about it here. It's also fascinating as I'm able to do presentations and be out in the field to hear from other states how impressed they are with the work that's happening in North Carolina. And I know, as Anne-Marie mentioned earlier, we have some people from other states that join us for these webinars to learn about what we're doing. And I just thank each of you that are DLI educators and administrators for that work. See, we have agreed that having authentic resources is key for the success of DLI programs. And then teacher input with the leadership and program development with DLI program implementation is another takeaway.
Well, in the interest of time, please keep adding to the chat your takeaways, but I'd also like to thank all of our presenters today from Guilford County Schools for sharing what they do and how they make DLI work so well for their students. You're really a testament to what can happen when we focus professionally on what needs to occur for our students to be successful. All right. So this next section, we're not going to have time to do today, but this was where you would kind of reflect on the evidence you might have about PR2 characteristics and behaviors in the classroom, and we would have done our Jamboard, which is a Google activity. I'll leave the slides in there anyways, in case you want to go back and take a look at that and use it if you download those materials to share locally. So I'll just scroll through quickly these slides so that we can do our wrap up for today. All right, here's our wrap up and reminders. One thing to remember is that anyone can sign up for our NCDPI listservs. We have one specifically for DLI educators, and that might have been where you got the information about today's broadcast. One thing that always happens with this is that we take the registration from this webinar and we go ahead and make sure that your email address is added on to the DLI educators listservs, verify that it's there. But we also want to encourage you to sign up for other listservs that may be of interest to you in your work. I just put a link in the chat box to the NCDPI listserv where you can go in, enter your email address, and then choose by checking a box any of the listservs that would be helpful to you. So they might be some of the other world language listservs like World Language Instructors or World Language Education News. There's one for NC Lingofolio. Over with our ESL Title III colleagues, there are English learner teachers and so forth. And so there's also things like with global education and whatnot too. So feel free to sign up for anything that would help you in what you do for students and schools. Also, as I said before, the materials are recorded from each webinar that we do is always posted as archives. It is posted now in our brand new DLI webinar series Canvas space. You see the bit.ly link there, DLI and NC webinars, and so you can always access that information as you need to and get these materials. Also, our archives are available for a period of time and can be completed asynchronously. So even if you didn't get to attend, or if you have a colleague who didn't get to attend this live broadcast, but you think they benefit from the information, they can use the archives and our completion work to go ahead and get that information and turn it in. We usually post the exit ticket, that's what we call it, that they have to fill out about a week or two after our broadcast. That's how quickly we can get it approved. And then that asynchronous option is available until usually 1 week following the next webinar, which will be in February. Also, if you did attend our live broadcast today, you get a CEU certificate or contact hour certificate that documents your participation today. And note, obviously, that all public school units, whether you're a district or charter school, they usually have to approve professional development in whatever format it's offered in. The contact hours will come in the form of an email with an attached certificate of attendance about 1 week from today. So look for that by next Thursday, maybe sooner. Also, we wanted to remind everyone about the brand new PowerSchool DLI Special Programs attribute. This is a way to identify our students across the state, but in our statewide PowerSchool system. This helps us keep a better measure on our data on how many students are being impacted by DLI. You may remember from Kimberly's part of the presentation that she talked about how many students are at each grade level at Jones Elementary School in the DLI program. And so this attribute in PowerSchool allows our programs to indicate the students at each school and each grade level enrolled in DLI. And there's even a short video that references this on how to do that. So if you have a data manager who wants to help you with that, or if you're the one who does that, we've got a video for you to watch that was put together by our data management team here at DPI. And I'll put that link as well in the chat. Finally, we're wrapping up today right on time. We thank everyone again for joining us. We are happy always to have you here to answer any questions about DLI, certainly in North Carolina, and to share with our neighbors who also join us in these broadcasts. You see here the DPI DLI team. I'm Anne-Marie Gunter, the World Languages Consultant, and my contact information is on the screen. My colleague, Ivana, is also listed there, and I will put our information as well into the chat box so that you can have all the details you need. I know that Carla, the principal at L&J, also shared her information, so I'll try to post those details with our archives so that you would have access to it. In addition, we do have a Google site, and you see there the link to it, the bit.ly link, the shortened URL. The Google sites are transitioning, and in the new year, in January of 2022, we will actually be in a new space with all of the materials you see on the DLI Google site at the moment. You can reach us at Twitter, especially with our hashtag DLI and NC. And you can always also reach out to our supervisor, Dr. Stacy Daniel, who's the section chief of English Language Arts and Languages, which incorporates world languages and ESL, and thus, of course, DLI too. The last person on our team is Teresa Parker, and she's the person who will send you the email with your certificate of attendance for today. So look for an email from her. That's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you have a great evening.